When we talk about fantasy art, one of the first names that come to mind for most people, a lot of people, is Frank Frazetta. And when you think of Frank Frazetta, one of the first things that come to mind is the Death Dealer. And the Death Dealer, luckily, has had tons of adaptations, even in some degree in film. If you look at like the homages to him in Fire and Ice, novels. There's a role-playing game supplement for D&D 4th edition, even. And probably one of my favorite adaptations was comic books. I have here. Glare's not doing so good on that. I'm a professional. Issue 1 from Verotic Comics, Death Dealer #1. Which is funny because this is the first comic, and ooh, geez. And they show the second painting, Death Dealer 2. This comic had art by Simon Bisley. I always think Clyde Caldwell whenever I think Simon Bisley for some reason. And to be quite honest, for a first issue, this was a little disappointing. The later 3 issues, the art was done by Liam Sharp, and it was a hell of a lot better. And I got more of those. Later on, we got... I'm going to take this one out of the clear wrap this time. Death Dealer, Shadows over Mirahem. Now, the story in this is a lot more, I guess, written. Glenn Danzig worked on the Verotic rendition, and it's a simple fare. It lets the art breathe. He does a pretty good job, in my opinion, of doing simple, edgy 90s fantasy, dark fantasy. It's very simple to the point. Words don't get in the way. This is a much more elaborate story, with my biggest complaint to it, not the story itself, but to the comic, is that it is a little too dark for its own good. Not physically dark. This is hard to read at times, and hard to tell what's going on in spots. But it's a really well done narrative. It's got a touching piece at the end. It adds some depth and complexity to the Death Dealer while making him the main focus of the Death Dealer. Shadows over Mirahem is also what the 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons module is based on. And it, too, is way too dark. Physically printed too dark. And I guess that leads to where I'm going to talk about today, as far as comics go, is Frank Frazetta's Death Dealer by Opus Comics. I have here 7 of the 8 issues of the run. I believe there's more issues coming, but this is an ongoing run. I'm missing issue 3 because my local shop had some shipping problems. They didn't get issue 3, and I don't want to spend $10 plus shipping for a $5 comic. I might get the trade later. Unfortunately, though, that's a big might, because this kind of sucks. It's painful how bad this kind of is. Whereas the original Verotic run has well-established artists that are really paying homage to the master that is Frank Frazetta. And Shadows over Mirahem really adds depth and complexity, and while a bit hard to read, the artwork is also top-notch. This feels too much like a modern comic book and less like a mythic narrative befitting such a titanic character in, I don't want to say pop culture, but for lack of a better word, I'm going to say pop culture. The art is basic. It's serviceable at times. There are some good pieces here and there. Like he fights a dragon in issue 8, and there's a crab monster in issue 2, and there's homages to stuff, other bits of Frazetta's works. But it's done by base level comic book standards and not like some fancy well done piece. Like this feels like an ongoing, almost like an ongoing superhero comic, like the Marvel Comics run for Conan back in the day, and not something fantastic like the Marvel magazine Conan the Barbarian, like savage sort of Conan. Other issues with this book that I have noticed and do not like, not one bit do I like. The writing is just garbage, to put it politely. You have characters that turn on a dime personality-wise. Motivations are lacking. Characters seem almost two-dimensional. And the dialogue is cringy at times. Like, if you're going to sell me on sword and sorcery fantasy, I expect characters to talk like sword and sorcery. Not have a cursed helm, an ancient cursed helm possessing an old warrior during a barbaric time, say, ooh, she'll know you're a real freak, as far as having sex with a helmet on. That happens in here. The idea of the helmet being cursed is brought back from the Verotic comic, and I believe it was in the novels too. Those are a little hard to find, so I can't verify. It's just so cringy at times. And the ideas are cool. Like, there's a cool prompt of an idea, like the dealer fighting off a giant crocodile, much like in one of the series of paintings. But it's just, it follows up with, a character was kidnapped. Spoilers, character who's kidnapped turns out to be evil. It's just bad. The dealer itself is not sympathetic of a character. They try to make him a sympathetic character. And then, like, there's the combat of the Cursed Helm, and the Cursed Helm suddenly isn't evil midway through the series. It just makes no actual... I would say it's a really cool attempt. It's following a legacy of 2 great runs, but it falls a bit flat. If you really need some fantasy craze, I get it. I do appreciate that there is not a ton of ads for other books in here. And it didn't feel like I was reading a massive advertisement left and right. So that's a plus. Other than that, tread cautiously.